Hello, my grots and gets. Welcome back to another episode of Happy Grump and Wargaming. Today, we are going to be talking about the single, in my opinion, most powerful ability in the entire game. This thing is a total beast, and if you don't understand how it works, well, you got to figure it out today. And we're going to talk about all the units that have this ability and how they will dramatically impact your gameplay. So stay tuned, let's buckle up into it, and let's get right into the game. So the first thing is, what's the rule? The rule is ignore modifiers, and there are not that many cases of units that can actually ignore all modifiers. There's tons of examples of units in the game that will ignore some modifiers, like this Tau unit ignores modifiers to hit, or this unit will ignore modifiers to wound, or this unit will ignore modifiers, but very few units actually ignore all modifiers. And today we're going to talk about each one of those units, and we're going to figure out which ones are exactly the best and why you desperately need to try to get one of these units into your army just so that you can actually take control of this really powerful rule. So we talk about things like this every single day in the members only Discord. We do have a free access to Discord, but there's a lot more that happens in the members only side. So if you would like to support the channel, please go ahead and click on the link down below, and you can go to my coffee and you can sign up there, or you can just become a YouTube member as well. Either way, you'll just need to link your account to Discord. That'll be under connections on the settings for Discord, and then you will have your role automatically assigned to you, and you will be ready to rock and roll and hang out with us in the members chat. So, getting right into it, ignore modifiers. This is an incredibly powerful ability. I think it's the best. It will make Satans much more easy to kill. Yeah, maybe I was a little crazy when I said it makes Satan easy to kill, but it definitely makes them a lot easier to kill, and we'll see the math on that in just a little bit. I'll give you some stats. It completely can shut down a lot of Death Guard's abilities, because Death Guard are going to be modifying, say, your ability to hit, and they can modify it by 2, right? Because the Death Guard aura can make you -1 to your weapon skill, and they can stack that with, say, Nurgling's or even Typhus's ability, which also makes you -1 to hit. So they can have Custodes hitting on 4s, or if you are a unit that normally hits on 4s, you'll be hitting on 6s, and that is awful. So it really does help in the Death Guard matchup. It makes the Tans much easier to kill. It stops the unkillable Mozrog Scragbad. So if you've ever had horror stories about Mozrog Scragbad standing in front of your entire army and just tanking it because it's T10 and -1 to wound and a 4-up invuln and a 4-up field of pain, well, suddenly he can't be -1 to wound, and that actually does make a huge freaking difference. It ignores modifiers to move. Now, this is one that I find exceptionally valuable, and a lot of people just don't pay attention to, because when you ignore modifiers to move, suddenly the guard's basilisk are nowhere near as scary a threat. And that really matters. In addition, that has lots of movement modification in it. And then lastly, it will even let you ignore modifiers to OC, because it's ignore modifiers to all of your stats, right? So Battle Shock is much less impactful. Tyrannid, Shadow in the Warp, especially when they have the Neuro Tyrant, you're no longer -1 to your leadership because you would ignore that modifier. So that's what all these things do. So before we get right into which individual units have this ability, just how powerful is this? Well, just for funsies, I wanted to see exactly how many Plague Burst mortar shots did it actually take to kill one Satan if they're taking the indirect penalty. Well, this is kind of hilarious, and it's kind of an outrageous example, guys, because in all reality, this is the wrong gun to try to kill Satan with, but just to demonstrate exactly how big a deal ignoring modifiers actually is. It would take 130 Plague Burst Crawler mortars to kill one Satan when you're taking the indirect penalty. So you're hitting on 4s, lethals on 6s, strength 8s, so you're wounding on 5s. They have a 4-up invuln, or actually they're saving on 3s because they also would get the covers. They would have a 4-up invuln, and then they're having the damage with a 5-up field of pain. It's going to take 130 of those shots. Now, if you had Mortarion, for example, spreading his aura, and once again, guys, I know this is a ridiculous example, but I really just wanted to hammer in just how impactful this could be. It would only take you 54 Plague Burst Crawler mortars to kill Satan. So it's actually over double as effective just by having the ignore modifiers, because suddenly they're hitting on 3s and it's doing 2 damage instead of 1. So because they're not having it anymore because you are ignoring modifiers. This leads us into another question. Does ignore modifiers ignore having damage? Yes. Yes, it does. Just full stop. It does. Because having damage modifier is a modifier upon the damage profile of the unit that has the ignore modifier special rule. This has been ruled upon. It is done. There is no question about it. When you ignore modifiers, you ignore halved damage. Done. All right. So admittedly, the Plague Burst Crawler Mortar is not really the best example of to demonstrate exactly how much it takes to kill a C'tan. And remember, this is only the mortars. This is not going through entropy cannons. There are many other much more effective ways to kill C'tan. This was just a funny stat that I pulled up. But let's look at another version of something that's a little more realistic for how hard it is to kill a C'tan. So if you're playing Custodes, like I play Custodes, and I'm sure a lot of you play Custodes, it would actually take you 58 Custodian Guard attacks with sustained hits and full rerolls to wound with +1 to wound against a C'tan to kill a C'tan. That is a lot of Custodian Guard attacks, especially considering the fact that you can only maximum have 5 Custodian Guard in a unit. So you can't even do that in 2 activations. It would require 3 activations to be able to do it, which is kind of, or multiple units, which is kind of wild. Now, if we wanted to make them ignore modifiers, say using Trajan Valoris' stats, and this is going to get, the math's going to get a little bit funky because I'm only doing the math off the Custodian Guard's attacks and not including Trajan's. It would take only 29 Custodian Guard attacks to kill a C'tan. And once again, you can't have 29 attacks, although technically you can because you can get a really good sustained hit roll. But just to demonstrate you just exactly how amazingly ineffective it is to have ignore modifiers. It literally halves the amount of effort required to do the job. And that is such a big deal. All right. Just one other little aside before we really get into the meat and potatoes of the video. I was really curious how many close combat weapons attacks it takes to kill a Land Raider, and BT dubs, it actually takes 864 close combat weapon attacks to kill a Land Raider. That's hilarious. Random stat. I actually crashed the math app I was using, which I use Ghost Lords, by the way. I'll put that down in the link down below because the number was a little bit too big, but it's fine. It takes 864 close combat attacks, hitting on 3s, winning on 6s to kill a Land Raider. There you go. All right, so let's get right into the first unit that really, really ignores modifiers and why it's so freaking awesome. Trajan Valoris. Trajan Valoris gives his entire unit ignore modifiers. He's not a single model that does it. He gives it to the entire unit. And this makes Trajan's unit crazy effective at killing anything, especially when you consider the fact that Trajan himself is quite a beast. Because he has 6 attacks, it's going to be at strength 10, AP2, damage 3. This will ignore all modifiers, including Armor of Contempt. People get confused by this, so let me break this down for you. When you read the Captain General special rule, which I've got pulled up here for you right here, it says, while this model is leading a unit, you can ignore any or all modifiers to the characteristics of models in the unit and or to any roll or test made for models in that unit, excluding modifiers to saving throws. Armor of Contempt is not a modifier to a saving throw. Armor of Contempt is a AP modifier to your weapon. That's why it works. It's not a modifier to saving throws, so yes, you will ignore Armor of Contempt, and you'll ignore any other modifiers with it. So Trajan absolutely turbocharges the effectiveness of his unit, and then you stack on the fact that he has the ability to give his unit fights first once per game. It is absolutely powerful. It is really, really strong. You can pair him with a unit of Custodian Guard to basically kill anything in the game. Because strength 10, generally speaking, at +1 to wound if you're using strats, re-rolling full wound rolls with sustained hits is kind of disgusting when you think about just how much damage that can do, ignoring all modifiers. And then you can also pair him with a unit of Wardens to make a very, very, very hard to kill unit that can then slot back with the fury of 1,000 waves. You'll have to forgive me. I watched It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia for the 20th time the other night because I think it's the funniest show in existence. But basically, it's no modifiers for any time. He fails the Battle Shock test. He doesn't care because his unit is still OC3 if you're leading with Wardens, or OC2 if you're leading without a Vexilla. And they're still holding objectives. It's just pretty freaking awesome. All right, so let's talk about the next unit. This is the Kaidan Command Squad. Maybe a little bit less awesome than Trajan Valoris' squad, but it can be a really cheeky way to get some ignore modifiers, plasma melter shots out there. I do think it's a little bit expensive because it's a 65-point unit that you're going to add on to another unit of Kaidians, which is just going to die pretty much instantly to anything. It is a little bit cute, and it does exist, and I'm not saying there's no purpose for it. I am not a guard player, so there might be some combos I'm not thinking about out there, but this does exist, and I wanted to point that out. Now let's talk about another really cool option. This is the Firestorm Champ of Humanity. So this is actually a really, really cool option here. So, Champion of Humanity. Tacticus model only. Now that's really important. Tacticus model only, which means sadly you cannot put it on like an apothecary by a Logus who's leading a bunch of eradicators, because that would be sick. But it's still super, super good. You're generally going to put it on a lieutenant, but the combination that I'm kind of thinking about is I would actually want to run it on a Blade Guard Agent. So in Firestorm specifically, what I might be tempted to do is I might be tempted to run a Blade Guard Ancient or a Lieutenant, either way could go, with the Blade Guard Vets. And I might combo it with Adrax Agatone, because Adrax Agatone also gives Blade Guard champs re-roll wound rolls, which makes this unit a really tough unit and something that can do a ton of damage. I actually really like the combination. It can work really dang well. The other option could be a lieutenant who's perhaps leading a unit of Hellblasters. This is also a really, really good option to get Hellblasters just annihilating things that they shoot at. So there's a lot of really cool options that you can do with this. The Firestorm Champion of Humanity enhancement can go on any Tacticus model, and that is a really, really good one. So I like it a lot. Now, I also just really like this picture because it has a really cool looking salamander guy, and the ultimate salamander, Godzilla, behind him is hanging out, just getting ready to do God's work. So I thought it was a cool picture. Let's go on to the next one. We have the Grandmaster. Now, this is for the Grey Knights specifically. And this is really, really important because it gives your Grey Knights a unit that can just say, nay. It's very strong into armies that will have lots of the -1 to wound, say your orcs, or damage to count, or -1 damage. So, like, if you're going into Custodes and Custodes have the -1 damage strat, well, suddenly your Grey Knights, this unit especially, will still be able to cleave through those Custodes, and that is a huge, huge benefit to you because it can really, really suck when your entire army is damaged too, and you're playing against an army that is -1 damage. So, speaking from 9th edition horror experiences, trust me on this one. So it's a really, really powerful ability that works really well for this army because they desperately needed a way to get this ability out there. Now, he pretty much always combos with either a unit of Terminators or Paladins. You're never going to take him solo. Well, I'm not going to say never, but I can't possibly imagine a place where you take him solo. So the Grandmaster unit of Grey Knights is awesome. So if you're playing Grey Knights, you're pretty much, I think you're going to take them, unless you're on pure Nemesis Dread Knight spam, which is also quite a cool option. If you're playing against Grey Knights, you need to know that the Grandmaster does this, and it's a really big deal. And you saw when I showed the math earlier just how impactful it is. So then, a little bit of a different take here. So these are not units that get ignore modifiers. These are stratagems that can give basically any unit ignore modifiers. Both the Sisters of Battle and the Ironstorm have the ability to use this. For the Ironstorm, it's going to be Unbowed Conviction. Target one Adeptus Astartes unit from your army that is below starting strength, meaning it has lost a model or has lost wounds. Then the Sisters of Battle unit is Light of the Emperor, and the effect is essentially the same. It is going to be giving ignore modifiers to the unit that you use it upon. Now, it can be a little bit tricky to proc this one. It does combo really quite well with Fight on Death. So if you're Sisters of Battle and you're planning on like charging in and just having your guys get killed because you're charging a fights first unit, you could pop this in the command phase, and then you could spend your CP to Fight on Death so that you can Fight on Death at +1 to hit, at +1 to wound because of the Sisters of Battle detachment rule. And then you can also ignore all modifiers. It can actually be really, really valuable in that situation. So I can think of a lot of situations where this can be really, really quite useful. Same thing for Ironstorm. It can be absolutely disgusting on Gladiator Reapers or say on a Storm Raven, especially when you pair it with Mercy's Weakness it's gross. Absolutely disgusting. So those are really good strats. I'm tempted to say that these strats are they might be better than some of the units, but since you have to be below starting strength, there's qualifiers on them. Maybe they're not better than just having a unit that has it innately, although it is very flexible, and I like it a lot. Then we have Votan. We only have 3 more, so just bear with me for these because we're getting to the best for last. Votan. They will take the enhancement Grim Demeanor, which is very similar to the Champion of Humanity one, where you're just going to be able to give that model and the unit it leads ignore all modifiers, and ignore all modifiers is exceptionally powerful. Now, when we're going through it, we got to think about what types of units are we really wanting to, just run this on, right? So what unit do you really want this on? Well, I'm personally going to be wanting to put this on a unit of Hearthguard because Hearthguard are beast, and especially when you pair it with the fact that they're going to be +1 to wound because they're going to be using, the judgment tokens. It becomes very, very powerful with a crazy, devastating salvo of an insane amount of shots. It's going to be 10d6 shots at strength for AP 0 damage 1, hitting on 2s, generally +1 to wound. And then it's also going to be an additional, 3 times 10, so 30 shots that are going to be a strength 5, and 6s are dev wounds. It is disgusting how much firepower comes out of this. And when you have the fact that they're going to be at +1 to wound, most likely, Then you understand, oh, I can't counteract it with -1 to wound because you ignore modifiers. It becomes exceptionally strong. It's also great on Hearthguard who are using the plasma guns because suddenly it's AP2 that ignores Armor of Contempt. It also gets very, very good in that situation as well. It could also be very interesting with like a Brokir or like a Iron Master leading the Brokir Thunderkin, although it's less so because Brokir Thunderkin are just generally not that great. Last two, now these are probably the two most powerful ignore modifier abilities in the entire game, and I think you already guessed what one of them is. It is going to be Mr. Mortarion himself. Mortarion is one of the best units in the game right now. He gives a 6-inch aura of ignore modifiers. Now, does this make him the best ignore modifier unit in the game? It totally possibly can, because it is a 6-inch aura, so it's not just his unit. It's not just the unit he's leading. It's everything within 6 inches of him. And if you think about it, Mortarion's base is freaking massive. It is huge. So it really stretches a super far distance where you can get the majority of your army basically just ignoring modifiers, and that is so dang powerful. It's really good on those Plague Burst Crawlers, because the Plague Burst Crawlers can be hanging out in the backfield. They'll ignore the modifier to hit penalty because of indirect. And then that just makes them a lot better. So it is awesome. It's super strong. Mortarion is a total beast. Now, one more really, really beastly thing about him is that this is in addition to his other Primarch aura choices. He could also choose the aura that gives like reroll 1s to wound, or the aura that increases contagion range by 3 inches. This is so strong because it stacks with all of his other auras, which is pretty rare because the other Primarchs generally don't have things that do like that. So that's Mortarion. He's a total monster. And then for the last one, who I think would have been the strongest if it wasn't for just one little pickle, we're going to talk about the Silent King himself. So now the Silent King, while a friendly Necron's unit is within 6 inches of this unit's Serac model, you can ignore any or all modifiers to the characteristics of model in that unit, enter any roll or test made, blah, 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 blah. So it's another one of these really, really exceptionally powerful 6-inch auras of ignore modifiers. Now, we're not seeing the Silent King in competitive play all that much right now for one very specific reason. The Silent King himself, when you include his 2 Menhirs, gives up 12 assassinate points and 8 on bring it down. You might not understand why this works, so let me explain. Unfortunately, there was a little bit of a boo-boo when they printed the codex, which I really want GW to fix. I want them to fix this, because even though I think Necrons are really good right now, this is stupid. If you look at the keywords, it says vehicle, character, epic hero, the Silent King, which means the 2 Menhirs which come with them, which are both models, also have the character keyword. Now, I know people are going to attack me in the comments, and they'll be like, oh, that's stupid, Jonathan. You got this rule wrong. I didn't get this rule wrong. It's correct. They do count as characters. They do give up assassinate when they're killed. I'm sure I'll argue with some of you about it in the comments, which I appreciate, because that means you're trying to learn the game. So like, don't take that dismissively. I do enjoy us being able to discuss things in the comments. I actually really, really like it, because sometimes people do point out things that I miss, and that makes me better at the game as well. So please comment down below if you disagree, and we'll have a little discussion, and we'll try to clear up any misunderstandings that you may have. Although a better place for that is in the members-only section of the Discord, which you could join for the low price of $4 a month on Ko-Fi, or I think it's like $7 a month on YouTube. It's just because YouTube takes the larger cut and blah, blah, blah. So whichever is easier for you, we have the options available. So the Silent King is awesome. He gives us a powerful 6-inch aura. In Hypercrypt, he can teleport just like everyone else, and give an aura of ignore modifiers, which is crazy powerful. It really, very, very good. But giving up on automatic 12 on assassinate and 8 on bring it down, potentially more, because remember, if you kill one Menhir and do no other damage, the Menhir could resurrect because of reanimation protocols. So it could be even more than that. So those are the units. Personally, I think Mortarion is the single best unit in the game that gives this ignore modifiers aura. I think followed very closely by Trajan Valoris, and then some of the stratagems. That is the way I'm looking at it personally, but all of these abilities are incredible. They're so powerful. Hopefully this helps you learn how to use them. Remember, if you ignore modifiers, it's all modifiers, movement modifiers, leadership modifiers, OC modifiers, toughness modifiers. It is very, very powerful. So I want you to be aware of that. With all that said, this was the video for today. Thanks so much for freaking hanging out. I am planning another TTS tournament. The first one was a wild freaking success. We had over 60 participants. We had an amazing roster of people who played. There were list changes. We're planning the next one to start in April. If you want to be a part of that, then make sure you join the members only side of the Discord and give me a heads up. And I'll be releasing more details on how to sign up in just a little bit. But I love and appreciate all of you. If you're looking for coaching, you can sign up at Ko-Fi as well. That is in the video description down below. I will respond to all messages on there within a day. I never take longer than that. You can also shoot me an email at happycrumpin at proton.me if you have any other business inquiries or whatnot. Anyway, until next time, everyone, thanks so much for your attention. I appreciate all of you, and happy crumpin', my lovely, lovely wargamers. Bye-bye.